Jim Coleman, the athletic director at the University of Utah, then Greta Peterson. Next to Greta is Chase N. Peterson, president of the University of Utah, my wife, Sue Scott. Now welcome them with some applause. Thank you. Before we begin, we'll ask Bob Rice to give an invocation. Bob.
It's just like you.
About 2 years ago, the Crimson Club was organized to support and promote the athletic program at the University of Utah. The logical choice for the president of that group was John Crawford. He has served as president since the inception of the Crimson Club. It's my pleasure now to introduce to you John Crawford.
Thank you, Brad. On behalf of the University of Utah Crimson Club Board of Directors, I wish to add our welcome and thanks for your attendance at our first Hall of Fame dinner. The University of Utah is recognized for its stature as an institution of higher learning, for the many traditions that have been a part of this institution and its student body. The achievements on the field of intercollegiate athletics through the students who excelled then and in later life have added to this luster of this great university. With this in mind, the Crimson Club Board of Directors felt it was both timely and appropriate to start recognizing these great contributions and to add yet another great tradition here at the university. We are here tonight to start this tradition with our first Hall of Fame dinner and to induct the first of many who will be so honored as members of the University of Utah Crimson Club Hall of Fame. Thank you again for all being here to help get this off to such a great start, and we look forward to many additional great evenings such as this. Thank you.
We would now like to proceed with the serious part of our evening, that being the induction of our honorees into the Hall of Fame. We're privileged to have with us and to make those induction announcements the Director of Sports, Call Radio and KUTV, Mr. Bill Marcroft, the voice of the Utes.
A lot of memorabilia and nostalgia tonight, particularly for me, with not only our five, but other former stars that are here. Please welcome the first of 5 charter inductees into the University of Utah Athletic Association Crimson Club. Frank Christensen. Crimson lettered in football in 1930, 1931, and 1932. He was team captain in both 31 and 32. The Utes won the Rocky Mountain Conference Championship all 3 years that Frank played. In 1930, they posted a perfect 8-0 record. Utah's record during the 3 years he played was 23-1. He was named All-Conference all 3 years, and as a sophomore and junior was named a third-team All-American. As a senior in 1932, he was a first-team All-America choice by UPI and the World Telegram. He was an excellent fullback and was one of the top scorers in the country, scoring a total of 235 points in his 3-year career. In 1931, he scored 100 points. Played in the East-West Shrine All-Star Game and the Century of Progress All-Star Game in Chicago, which was the forerunner of the All-Star Game. After graduation, Frank played 4 years for the Detroit Lions of the NFL as a fullback on offense and as a linebacker or a defensive back on defense. The Lions won the NFL championship in 1935. After his career with the Lions, he moved back to Salt Lake City and joined his father and brother in Christensen Machine Company. In 1944, he joined with former Lion teammate George Christensen, no relation, to form Christensen Diamond, where they manufactured diamond drill bits. Christensen Diamond became Christensen Incorporated in 1975, and in 1977 it merged with the Norton Company. Frank has been on the Norton Board of Directors and also serves as chairman of the Board of Directors of Christensen Incorporated. He has a son and a daughter. The University of Utah Athletic Association Crimson Club, in recognition for outstanding contributions to the University of Utah athletics, is proud to accept Frank Christensen as a member of the Crimson Club Hall of Fame.
Crimson Club members and guests, I'm deeply honored and really humbled to be a part of this group being inducted into the Crimson Club Hall of Fame for the first time. In 1929, when I left Manor High School, was the beginning of the Great Depression. I had no intention of going to college. My coach at Granite High School, Rex Sutherland, and Ike Armstrong, who was coach at the university here, spent some considerable time convincing me that I should try to go on to college. I had a wonderful family, and they gave me the assistance I needed to meet the financial obligation of tuition and books to start it. They also gave me a job that I could work in off-school hours. It was tough at that time. I have said many times, and I believe very strongly, that the best part of my education came from athletics. To a degree, I disagree with college that they don't give credits for participation in athletics. Young people spend a lot of time and learn a great deal. When I left the university, I had the opportunity, because we had some success in Utah and some great players, to take sort of a postgraduate course in athletics. I went to Detroit and played with the Lions after a couple of All-Star games, and I learned a great deal. Had an opportunity to travel, met people, and as a result of many of those acquaintances, we were later able to develop a reasonably successful business here in Salt Lake. I am a firm believer in scholarships for athletes. I think they deserve it. I ask everyone, all members of the Crimson Club, all citizens of this community, let's do what we can to support the Crimson Club Scholarship Fund. It's really worth it, and we should continue the tradition of this great institution. Thank you very much.
Brian Christensen, whose life epitomizes what is good in collegiate athletics. And now, Arnie Farron. Arnie Farron is the only four-year All-American in University of Utah basketball history. He was named All-American in basketball in 1944, 45, 47, and 48. He led the Utes to the NCAA basketball championship in 1944 and was named Most Valuable Player in the NCAA tournament that year. In 1945, he was named NEA Basketball Player of the Year. And in 1947, helped the Utes to the NIT Championship, where he was runner-up for tournament MVP. After his senior season in 1948, he was named MVP of the College All-Star Game. His Utah jersey, number 22, has been retired. Arnie played with the Minneapolis Lakers from 1949 to 1951. He was named the most popular player on the Lakers for the 1950 season. He was successful in private business prior to joining the University of Utah Alumni Association in 1969 as Director of Regional Programs. In 1971, he became General Manager of the Utah Stars of the American Basketball Association. He returned to the university in 1974 as an assistant to the Vice President for University Relations. In May of 1976, Arnie became athletic director at the University of Utah, a position he held until July of 1985. Under his leadership, Utah athletic teams won 10 national championships and finished second 6 times. Ute men's teams won 15 conference championships and took 8 second places, while Lady Ute teams captured 15 conference titles and had 7 second place finishes. The completion of the remodeling of Rice Stadium was also completed under his tenure. Arnie is currently a member of the NCAA Division I Men's Basketball Committee. He is also a member of the Helms Foundation Hall of Fame and the Utah Sports Hall of Fame. And he was also a pretty good color man. Arnie and his wife, Rolane, are the parents of 4 children. The University of Utah Athletic Association Crimson Club, in recognition for outstanding contributions to University of Utah athletics, is proud to accept Arnie Farron as a member of the Crimson Club Hall of Fame.
This is a singular honor that I'll cherish for many reasons. One of the reasons because my family is here and many special friends to share the evening with me. I'm pleased that Bill Marcroft will make the introduction. Bill has been a dear friend. I'm also pleased that John Mooney is here. The association with those two people goes back a long way, and I cherish those moments. I'm honored to be part of the inductees tonight, along with the other 4 who I personally admired and respected their athletic achievements. At a time in athletics when a state senator in Nebraska is recommending that the Nebraska football team be put on the university payroll because they are earning that right by their competition, it's refreshing for me to Well, the President Peterson talked to Roy Jefferson and asked him, what should we offer athletes we recruit to come to the university? And Roy Jefferson's comment was the opportunity to earn an education. I reflect back when I came to this university, and it would sound like a hard story if Frank Christensen hadn't talked about coming up when he did at his time, but I really walked down and walked into the old gymnasium building and knocked on the door and asked Vadal Peterson if I could try out for the basketball team. There were no scholarships. Everybody on our team did the same thing. And so I like what Roy Jefferson said, I like what Frank Christensen said, that we do provide an opportunity for the athletes to earn an education in response to their using their abilities to compete on the athletic field. The university provided me this opportunity. It provided me many more things that are very special. An opportunity to meet Rolane. That's my biggest achievement. Many people recognize that I did marry above my position, and I acknowledge that to the people tonight. But more than that, through the educational opportunities and through competing and learning what winning and losing is about, it gave us the opportunity to grow to love the university, to send our children here. Perhaps the greatest thing the university has done is provided them an opportunity to get their education. I think that's important, but the education they got that enabled them to go out and be useful citizens and provide resources for their family to live in the style that they enjoy is a great blessing to this university. And that's all come about to us through athletics. I reflect that the word synergism is, to me, something that expresses what team athletics is all about. It means the actions of two or more members combined together brings a result that could not be achieved by one individual alone. So I think it's presumptuous for us to stand up here and accept an honor when it's given to us because we participated with a successful team. And I hope that in the future Hall of Fame banquets of the Crimson Club, the reflection of this honor will shed onto those teammates and coaches who made it possible for us to be here. Thank you all for coming. President Peterson, thank you for being president of a great university that means a lot to me.
It's unique that we have, as our charter members, two participants on the same team. Vern Gardner. They want to see you. Vern Gardner was a three-year All-American selection in basketball in 1946, 47, and 49. He led the Utes to the National Invitational Tournament Championship in 1947 and was named the tournament's most valuable player. He scored 17 points in the championship game as Utah upset highly favored Kentucky, 49-45 to win the crown. He was also named All-Conference for 3 seasons. As a center, Vern averaged 14.5 points a game and was the all-time Utah scoring leader for a few seasons. He currently ranks 16th in career scoring. His Utah jersey, number 33, was retired. Vern played in the East-West All-Star game after his senior year before signing with the Philadelphia Warriors of the NBA. He was a 3-year starter for the Warriors and averaged 15 points a game. Philadelphia won their division one year and made it to the playoffs all 3 seasons Gardner played with them. He also played in the NBA All-Star game. Vern holds a degree in physical education from the University of Utah, and after his pro career, became a high school coach. He coached 8 years at Star Valley High School in Ogden, where he coached for 5 years, in Afton, Wyoming. And then he was named the first basketball coach at Bonneville High School in Ogden, where he coached for 5 years. He taught school for a total of 30 years, and is now retired and operates 3 service stations in Roy, Clearfield, and West Point. Vern and his wife Joanne are the parents of 6 children. The University of Utah Athletic Association Crimson Club, in recognition for outstanding contributions to University of Utah athletics, is proud to accept Vern Gardner as a member of the Crimson Club Hall of Fame.
I think it's all been said. I haven't got much to add to what's been said. I'm not much for public speaking anyway, Fred, so it won't be 45 minutes like I promised you. I'm deeply honored anyway to have been picked by the Crimson Club as a member of their Hall of Fame, and I will always cherish this award that I have received tonight. And after rubbing shoulders with the other members, I'm truly flattered to be a member of that group that they belong, and I want to congratulate each of those for their achievement. There's one thing bad about this is you've got to admit you're an old timer to accept something like this. When I tell people I started playing basketball when they jump center after every basket, it's tough to deny that you've been around for quite a while. I come from a small town in Wyoming, a large athletic family, and I had a lot of time to daydream. 3 of my daydreams that happened to me in my youth were I wanted to either play football in the Rose Bowl, play baseball in Yankee Stadium, or play basketball in Madison Square Garden. The University of Utah gave me the opportunity to realize one of my fondest dreams, and I appreciate that and always will. The university's been great to me, and I doubt if I can ever repay them for what they have done for me. There are a number of traits that an athlete must have in order to excel. One of those is size, and I was fortunate enough to have size to go along with a little ability. I didn't have much ability. I had to work hard for everything I got, but I was strong on desire. And I think the person that excels in anything has to have the desire to go along. But I had enough desire to want to practice hard enough to become or excel in that field. But I think my most important trait that I had was luck, just good old-fashioned luck. I came along at the right time, and everything seemed to fit in order. My first luck began in high school where, because my brother was my coach, my mother saw to it that I played an awful lot of basketball. My luck continued as I went into the service immediately after high school, and I don't like to brag about my war record, but I did an awful lot of shooting for 2 years. Not a gun, a basketball. Then, when I was discharged from the service in 1945, my other brother, who graduated from BYU, decided to take me for a trip to overlook Camp Sober. My lucky break was then that we stopped at the university and watched the youth workout that afternoon. In that particular team, 6'2" Fred Sheffield was the center. 6 foot Nick Watt was the swing man, and they were big guys. So I told my brother, I said, I think I've got a good chance of making this ball club, so I don't think we need to make the trip to pro. That's one decision I made in my life that I'll always cherish and I've never regretted. The luck of my sophomore year was that we had a bona fide All-American on our team, and I can truly say I appreciated and enjoyed playing with Arnie for 2 years, even though our teammates thought that one ball wasn't enough for the 2 of us. But teammates are another thing. Athletics is a team sport. In basketball, it takes 5. 1 couldn't do it, 2 couldn't do it. It takes 5 to make the team. And I'm so proud and I appreciate so much the teammates that I had. The Spielens and the Sockets, the Widener's, the Watsons, the Woodwards, and many of our others. were very dear to me, and I appreciate so much because I would have been nothing without them. As Fred Wagner told me tonight, he says we flipped a coin to see who was the passer and who was the shooter. He won. He got to be the passer. Teammates were a great thing, but I was lucky to have the coaches that I had while it started in high school. And my brother, being the coach, told me now it's difficult to get the ball into the post. So when they do get it into you, you better do something with it. Oh my gosh, that's all I needed. So when they used to get the ball into me, I used to think, well, now, I'm not going to disappoint them by passing the ball back to them. So some way, one way or another, I used to get the shot off. The coaching continued when at the university I was coached by Baylor Peterson, who was one of the greatest coaches that has been here, and I appreciated him so much. He took a young, awkward, raw boned kid from the plains of Wyoming, stuck with me, worked with me, and developed a pretty good country ball player at the time he was taken. Baylor taught us other things that I appreciate very much. He says we were salesmen, selling the University of Utah athletic program, and the things we did off the court were as important as the things we did on the field. Appearance is so important, he used to say. There were two young men that met in New York, and one of them says to the other one, I think I know where you went to college. And the other one spoke up and says, oh yeah, where? He says, you went to Yale. He says, you're right. How did you know that? He says, well, I read about Yale, and you were just well-groomed, your hair's neatly combed, your shoes are shined, you're just a well-groomed individual, and that's what I pictured the person from Yale to be like. And he says, thanks a lot, I appreciate that. He says, I know where you went to college, too. And the other fellow spoke up and said, oh, yeah, where? He said, you went to BYU. And I said, yeah, how did you know that? He said, well, when you were picking your nose, I saw your school ring. Give credit to and be appreciative of, and that's the fans. Without the fans, this team was nothing. We did appreciate, I did especially appreciate everything that the fans did for me because they accepted a little old country boy from small Wyoming in the big city, and I've always appreciated that the fan support I received was tremendous. Well, I had great teammates, I had great coaches, I had great fans behind me. But there's one important thing that I'd like to give credit to, and that's my family. And I come from a large family. I was the 13th child, last one. But the 4 years I played at the university, there wasn't many games went by that one member, at least of my family, and a lot of times there's up to dozens that didn't participate and follow me and support me in that. And I'm truly thankful for the support I got. Even down to my number one supporter, the way he used to say with the little girl in the green coat, that I met at the university, married. If my luck holds up, she's going to take care of me the rest of my life. I have my own family now, which I'm very appreciative and proud of, and feel good that they have supported me in all the things that I have done. I want to thank the Crimson Club again for this great honor. I think it's a truly great honor that I wonder if I really deserve, but I'm not going to argue about that. I do appreciate it, and I wish them success in what they're attempting to do. Thank you very much.
One of the great thrills I had when I started at the University of Utah as a freshman is that I took a basketball class in the PE department, and my teacher was Vern Gardner. And that was a great thrill for a young boy out of South High School to be taught by the young man off the plains of Wyoming, as he was an idol. Thornton Spide Morris. Spike Morris lettered in 1924, 1925, and 1926 in football. He was the captain of the 1926 team that posted a 7-0 record and won the Rocky Mountain Conference Championship. As a senior, he was named All-Conference and was an honorable mention All-America selection by the International News Service. The Utes' 3-year record while Spike played was 16-6-1. He was an end in football, and he also lettered in basketball and track. Spike coached for 1 year at West High after graduation and then founded Uri, Pett, and Morris, a brokerage and municipal bond company with offices in Pocatello, Ogden, Salt Lake, and Grove. In 1951, he sold his company and his seat on the New York Stock Exchange to Merrill Lynch. He then founded the Thornton D. Morris Company. Although he is 82 years old, he still works for First Equities Corporation. I don't believe it. He was served on the University of Utah Board of Regents for 8 years and was president of the Salt Lake Chamber of Commerce. He was also chairman of the athletic board at the university. He was a director of the Fort Douglas Club for 10 years, and in 1984 was the first recipient of the Living Legend Award of the Fort Douglas Hidden Valley Club. He has been a member of that club since 1928. For years, Spike was one of the outstanding amateur golfers in Utah. He held the old Fort Douglas course record with a 66 for many years. Still plays 2 or 3 times a week at Hidden Valley with the same foursome that he played with for the last 56 years. He attended Wasatch Grade School and East High School before enrolling at the university. He has 4 sons who all attended the same schools that he did. 2 of his sons played football for the Utes under Jack Curtis. The University of Utah Athletics Association Crimson Club, in recognition for outstanding contributions to University of Utah athletics, is proud to accept Thornton Spike Morris as a member of the Crimson Club Hall of Fame.
How old can you get? I'd like to thank the Crimson Club Board. I'm flattered. I'm proud to accept this honor. I didn't realize that I was ever going to be in the Hall of Fame, but here I am, and I'm mighty proud to be here. I've thought this many times about the university. I don't think I've had an occasion such as this to thank the university what they've done for me. I wasn't recruited out of Eastside High School as a football player. I can assure you of that. I was afraid to ask him for a suit. I played on the second team, but not very often. I came to the university as a freshman, and when we got through with the freshman team in varsity, it represented an awful lot of hard knocks. But I did get a suit, and I've had a lot of fun, and for that reason I think a great deal of the University of Utah and what they've meant to me in my life. One reason I am particularly proud to come here is the fact that the finest, greatest friendships I've ever had in my life were established while I was here in school. The same goes for many other situations. They mentioned the fact that I was on the Board of Regents. I particularly relished that job. And through that, I got to meet a lot of wonderful faculty people. And after 8 years, you don't realize, as an undergraduate, what it means to be a professor at the university. I think I gave some of them some trouble, but an awful lot of them were wonderful to me, and I'm very grateful for having been to the university and to have been a graduate and to have served on the Board of Regents. Another particular reason, and I'm very, very thankful that I came and enrolled and graduated from this school, is if there hadn't been the University of Utah, I might have made a serious mistake, because my wife, she became my wife later, I would have missed her, and that would have been bad. I can't tell you how grateful I am to accept this honor, and I do appreciate it so much, and I want to thank again the club for all the wonderful accolades and things that they've done for me here this evening. I have met our new coach. I've met his staff. I'm very much enthused with the prospects of what they can do and what they will do. I just hope that I can continue being around for a while to help this new coach and encourage them and see some victories that we haven't had for a few years by some of these schools around close there. Thank you so much, folks, for being here. I appreciate the recognition and the honors, and I'll remember it all my life.
Unfortunately, our fifth charter member is not with us tonight. Larry Wilson is still with the St. Louis Cardinals, and they have a game on Sunday, and he's pretty busy. Larry Wilson was a 3-year football letterman for the Utes from 1957 through 1959. As a senior in 1959, Wilson was named a third-team All-America on 2 different teams and was also selected to play in the East-West Shrine All-Star game. He played both halfback and defensive back for the Utes and also returned kickoffs. He gained 559 yards with a 5.7 per yard carry average as a senior. He also caught 21 passes and averaged 34 yards per kickoff return. He set a school record which lasted until 1981 by scoring 13 touchdowns that season. That is still the second most touchdowns ever scored by a Ute player in a season. He was drafted in the 7th round by the St. Louis Cardinals of the NFL. Selected as a halfback, he was moved to the defensive secondary and settled in at free safety. Larry played for the Cardinals for 13 years. He made 8 bowl appearances and holds 10 Cardinal records. He was named the Cardinals' most valuable player in 1966 and 1968. His 52 career interceptions is the highest in NFL history. He is credited with innovating the safety blitz. Larry retired after the 1972 season and was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 1978 after the minimum 5-year waiting period. His jersey, number 8, is one of only 4 to have been retired by the Cardinals. After his playing days, Larry moved into the Cardinal front office. He is currently in his 9th year as Director of Pro Personnel after spending his first 4 years as the club's Director of Pro Scouting from 1972 to 76. Larry and his wife Nancy live in Chesterfield, Missouri. He is the father of 2 sons and a daughter. And the University of Utah Athletic Association Crimson Club, in recognition for the outstanding contributions to University of Utah Athletics, is proud to accept Larry Wilson as a member of the Crimson Club Hall of Fame. And there you have the 5 charter members inducted into the Crimson Club Hall of Fame.
Thank you, Bill. That was extremely well done. 47 years ago, a young man left Chicago, headed for California to make his fortune. He was required to stop in Salt Lake to get enough money to continue, and he never left. I'm talking, of course, about John Mooney. John Mooney is one of the foremost sports writers in the United States and has been recognized many times in that capacity. He's a past president of the Football Writers Association, has received the Burt and McGrain Award for outstanding sports writing, among others. He also has received the Jake Wade Award, which is given by the over 700 college sports information directors. These are national awards. John Mooney is in his 47th year as the executive editor of the Salt Lake Tribune, and we would now like to hear from John Mooney.
Happy to be here. I am kind of surprised that there are two fellows here in the Hall of Fame that are older than I am, because down at the office they think I'm oldest white child born west of the Mississippi. And maybe some days. Some of us here tonight are that age that I'd like to talk to just a minute. And they remind me of this old Irish priest who went to the doctor. He said, "I'm not feeling very well." The doctor examined him and said, "Well, Father, you're 70 years old." He said, "You're an amazing man for 70. What's your problem?" He said, "I have no pep at all." Well, the doctor said, "I wouldn't normally prescribe this, but you know, a little schnapps in the morning would probably get your heart started and get you feeling better." Well, he said, "I couldn't do that." He said, "Mrs. McCann, my housekeeper, would not have any whiskey in the house at all." Well, he said, "Why don't you do this? You could slip a little bottle under your mattress, and when she brings you up the hot water in the morning to brush your teeth, you could have a little snort." Well, he said, "It might be worth it." So about 2 weeks later, the doctor ran into Mrs. McCann and said, "By the way, how is Father getting along? I haven't seen him." He said, "He's a changed man. He's up, he whistles in the morning, he runs down to breakfast, he takes off, does his parish work, comes home for lunch, he's happy, sings a lot, does his parish work in the afternoon, comes home again, reads at night, does his church work. A changed man." He said, "I think he's losing his mind. He brushes his teeth 14 times a day." I thought, since you've got so many athletes here tonight, I thought I might tell you a couple of stories I brought back from Ireland. We were driving along one day, and you have these small foreign cars, but it isn't very far any place, so you don't use much gas. I pulled into a service station, and I said, "Fill her up with petrol." And the attendant says, "We don't handle petrol here." I said, "Well, check the oil." He said, "We don't handle oil here either." I said, "What do you do?" He said, "We're a front of the IRA. I said, "Good, blow up the tires." You know, in Ireland, the natives in County Kerry are the Utah Aggies. I mean, all the jokes are told about them. And this Kerry man and an Englishman and a Frenchman were on this deserted island. They'd been there for years and years and years, and finally a bottle washed up on the shore. And they opened the bottle. The Irishman did, of course. Opened the bottle, and a genie popped out. And the genie said, "I've been imprisoned by an evil sorcerer in that bottle for 2,000 years, and I'll give you each one wish." And the Englishman thought for a minute. He said, "I say," he said, "I wish I were punting on the Thames again." Poof, he was gone. The Frenchman thought for a minute. "I wish to be on the sand, be back in Gay Paris." Poof, he was gone. The Kerryman thought a minute. He said, "Gee, it's lonesome without those two guys. I wish they were back." They caught an Englishman, an Irishman, a Kerryman, of course, and a Frenchman during the French Revolution. They were sentenced to be guillotined, you know, where that thing comes down, chops. So the Britisher comes up first. He said, "You want to lay face down or face up the knife?" He said, "I'm not afraid. There'll always be in England." Lay on his back. Snick, the knife stopped. Stuck. Well, they can't do it twice, so they let him go. The Frenchman says, "I'm not afraid. I'll look at the knife." They tell him, "Wait, it sticks." They have to let him go. So the Irishman lays down, he said, what's good enough for my two friends is good enough for me. I'll face the night. He lay down, he said, if you'll wait just a minute, I think I can show you where it sticks. At one time, Arnie and Watt and Vern were at Fort Collins. And those days we used to play Friday and Saturday and then a Sunday off and then play Monday between Wyoming and Fort Collins or Denver, whatever we had in the league in those days. And this one time, Arnie came to Vadel and he said, Coach, one of the fraternities is having a barn dance and our team has been invited. It's Saturday night. We don't have a game till Monday. Would it be all right if we went to the barn dance? And Vadel thought a minute and he said, well, yes, but be back by 11 o'clock. So everybody went to the barn dance. Well, I guess it'd be about 10:30, and all of a sudden, the guys are realizing they got a problem, and they're all late. So the next morning, Vadel calls in Watt first, and he said, Watt, you know, you're one of the older fellows on this squad. We counted on you. You were late last night. You better have a pretty good excuse, or I'm sending you home. Well, Watt said, well, Coach, we went to the barn dance, like you said. Got to be about 10:30. Looked around, I couldn't find the fellows that brought us. The fraternity guys were all gone, I guess. So I said, I tried to call a cab. There's only 2 cabs at Fort Collins. They wouldn't come clear out in the country to get me. So I decided I'd have to hitchhike. So I walked down this long lane. I came to this road, and I'm walking along the road maybe 100 yards. A fellow came along with a nice buggy horse. The horse looked along. He said, where are you going, son? I said, I got to get into Fort Collins. He said, hop in, we'll make it. So we're going down the road, really lickety-split. We could see the lights of the town. Just then the horse stepped in a hole, broke its leg. The guy got out, pulled out a gun, shot the horse. I had to walk into town, and that's why I'm late. Vadel said, wait outside, send in Vern. Vern came in, he told him the same story. He said, he couldn't get a cab, started to walk, got a ride in a horse and buggy, got just within sight of town. Horse stepped in a hole. Guy pulled out a gun, shot him. He had to walk in. Vadel looked, he said, okay, send in Arnie. I said, Arnie, you're the oldest one, you're the captain of this team. You know, it's pretty serious, and you better have a pretty good story, but I'm not very convinced. Arnie said, well, Coach, about 10:30, knew he had to get back, couldn't find a ride, couldn't get a cab, started walking. Vadel said, just a minute, let me finish the story. He said, and you started down the road, and the guy came along with a little buggy and a horse, right? Right. You got in and you're coming just within sight of town, right? Right? He said, then the horse stepped in the hole and broke its leg. Arnie said, no. No, we got just within sight of town. We had to stop because there were 2 dead horses in the road. I had gathered up a couple of notes on some of these athletes we honored tonight. Frank Christensen scored 13 points in 13 seconds. And he didn't know that that was a record until he picked up the paper one day, and believe it or not, Ripley, in those days, if you wanted to, you had the other team, who still could if you wanted today, you could either kick or receive after a team has scored on you. So the other team decided, Chris scored a touchdown, the other team decided to kick. He ran it back and scored a 60-yard run for a touchdown. And old Charlie Welch, the swimming coach, was the timekeeper, and he marked it down at 13 seconds. And then Chris said he missed that extra point because he was tired. Aki Evans tonight reminded some of us that Chris was also a fancy diver, although he did letter in swimming at the university, that they were going up to Burley to play a baseball game years ago. And this high bridge was over the Snake River, and Chris thought it would be fun to dive off the bridge. Now, they didn't know what was down there, whether there was any rocks or maybe they didn't care, I don't know. Anyhow, they dove off the top, and then they went back off and dove off the top of the bridge, and they're both here to say, both of them in pretty good shape considering all that. But one of Chris's biggest disappointments, when he was in pro football, he met the immortal, legendary Bronco Nagurski, who also was a wrestler, one of the first football players to turn wrestler. And Nagurski was a huge man. I mean, he had hands like the modern baseball first baseman's mitt. And Ike wanted to meet him, and there was a wrestling match down in McCullough Arena, so Ike persuaded Chris to take him down and into the dressing room afterwards. And Ike shook hands with Nagurski, and he said, gee, if I'd only had a football player like you to coach. And old Chris thought he was pretty good. He was an All-American. He thought he was doing a pretty good job for Ike, but I could have sold him for Nagurski. Spide, understand, said one time that he only could remember dropping one pass in his career, but Ike never forgot it. And Spide played, and I think the first game that Utah played in Hawaii, when Newt Rockney refereed the ball game, and Spide made one of those patented one-handed catches that he could do so well in those days, and kind of caught it one-handed, and Rockney said, "Nice catch, Captain." And that was the way they played the whole ball game. Rockney had more fun with him. I think he was out of shape a little bit. On Larry Wilson, some of you remember in the Oregon game, Larry broke, it wasn't a collarbone, I think it was his shoulder. Broke his shoulder in the first game, and I believe it couldn't have been, I didn't have time to look it up. I was going to ask him tonight, but I think it was about the fourth game of the season. Larry came back and played with his shoulder bandaged up, managed to go the rest of the year for us. He also was a fellow that with both hands broken and in a cast, playing with the St. Louis Cardinals, intercepted the pass and ran it back for a touchdown. He's probably one of the toughest athletes we ever had around here. Arnie was been said was one of the spark plugs on the Cinderella Utes in 1944. There's something you don't realize. He was All-American 4 years, but he still has eligibility left. Because during the war it didn't count, and Arnie could have made All-American 7 years if they'd let him play anyplace else, but they couldn't go back to the Garden, so Vadel had to say, "Well, you finished 4 years, Arnie, that's enough." When Arnie played with the Lakers, now Vern was pretty husky. I mean, he was a big, raw-boned farm kid. Arnie isn't much bigger than he was before, and when they played the Garden, they were kind of always afraid to turn the fans on for fear they'd lose half the youth basketball team. They were so skinny and little, and their hair was long and caught the wind. And Arnie, when he was playing with the pros, they used to rough him up a little bit, and I remember it said one time his biggest threat was, "If you don't quit picking on me, I'm going to run you into George Mikan's elbows," because Mike will wheel around like this and lay half your head over. It's, I think this is wonderful what you've done tonight, honoring these people and getting this group together. And I think what I like about it, it's this feeling I think I haven't sensed at the university for a long time, and I've been around a long time. I haven't had this feeling of unity, of pride that you're showing here tonight. I had a feeling for a long time that people came to the game with two shirts, one red and one blue. And if the Utes won, they left the red one on, but otherwise they pulled that off and went home blue and happy. And I have a feeling tonight we won't have so much of that again in the past. It reminds me of Henry Ford when he went to Cork in Ireland, and he came back and he said, a committee of the lads waited on him and said, "Mr. Ford, you are a great philanthropist, a great inventor, one of the leading citizens of the United States, and it was from this very seaport of Cork, Ireland, that your grandfather went to America and became famous and rich. And we're building a new wing on the hospital. And could we count on you for a contribution in your grandparents' names?" And Henry Ford said, "I certainly would like to do that. I'll give you a check for 5,000 pounds. Well, the next day, the Cork newspaper headlined, "Henry Ford gives 50,000 pounds to Irish Hospital." Well, everybody was embarrassed, and the committee came back and he said, "Mr. Ford, we're very embarrassed. It's a typographical error, and tomorrow morning the newspaper will run a correction. We'll say, instead of Henry Ford giving 50,000 pounds, Henry Ford gave 5,000 pounds. Henry said, "That'll be worse than it was the other way." He said, "How much is the building going to cost?" He said, 50,000 pounds. He said, "Give me my check." So they gave him the check. He wrote out another one for 50,000 pounds. He said, "I'll give you this under one condition. When you dedicate the wing of the hospital, let me provide the motto that goes over the door." And he said, "Certainly, for 50,000 pounds, you can do whatever you want." So if you happen to be in Cork, Ireland, and you go to this special hospital, you'll see this model that Henry Ford had put over there. "I was a stranger, and you took me in." And I want to thank you because I was a stranger, and you took me in 47 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. It's always a privilege for us to have with us the president of the university, And it's indicative of his support of all the facets of the university, and particularly his great enthusiasm for athletics here. It's my pleasure to introduce to you now the 11th president of the University of Utah, Chase N. Peterson. Honorees and friends of the university, it's a pleasure to be with you tonight. Bill, I think you have your program for the next 4 nights. If you could repeat the statements made by these 4 athletes before graduate university, you will have said, I think, as much as can be said about the significance of athletics. I think we've all learned something tonight from these 4 speeches. I have no speech. I'm going to introduce Jim Copeland. Let me say about 3 sentences that may be pertinent to the significance of this dinner and the significance of things we're trying to do at the university. What is the university's interest in sports? 1, sports are healthy. Pursued over a lifetime, they contribute to physical as well as mental health. 2, sports builds a community while it builds individuals. And we've heard from 4 tonight. 3rd, sports resonate with the human spirit. By that I mean that whatever our present state of society, we are descendants of ancestors who survived on their wit and on their quickness and on their strength and on their physical prowess. Those historic, even genetic characteristics do not wash out of the human spirit, no matter what the present state of our society. Secondly, sports, the winning and the losing and the measurement that is inherent in sports. In other words, its clarity and its perception and its clarity and its precision provides exactness and unambiguity in a world that is now overwhelmed with grayness and with uncertainty, with pretended equality of achievement. I'd like to suggest, pure and simple, that athletics is an expression of the Declaration of Independence. That is to say, it provides freedom for equality of opportunity and freedom for inequality of result. W. James Copeland was born in Charlottesville, Virginia, 1945. Educated in the high schools there and at the Distinguished University of Virginia. Graduated with a BA in 1967. Later came back and got his master's in education in 1977. Played professional football with the Cleveland Browns for 7 years as the lightest lineman and therefore probably the smartest. If you're not one, you've got to be the other. He then came back and worked at the University of Virginia from 1974 to 78. Was assistant athletic director in the athletic department of Missouri, 1978 to 1980. Successful and pioneering athletic director at the University of William and Mary College, 1980 to 1984. He's now living here in the Avenues with his wife Susie, daughter Jenny, a senior in East High, son Trey. Trey stands for W. James Copeland III, who's a junior on the East High football team, and son Matthew, who's a 4th grader at Ensign School. It's a pleasure to introduce Jim Copeland to this important audience. Jim?
Thank you, President Peterson. There are people that would question how smart it is to play 8 years in the smallest lineman. I must admit that when I accepted the job at the University of Utah, I was a little bit worried because all of my experience to that point had been with institutions that were primarily residential for the people that attended. And I wondered what kind of strength of feeling that I would find here from the graduates and the people associated with the school to the youth. Well, my fears were soon allayed because I have found a tremendous intensity of emotion and pride for the university and all those people associated with it. They're proud of the athletes that play here, of the teams. They're proud that the athletes graduate, that they become good citizens and contribute to the community once they leave. They're proud of the university as a whole academically, of its research efforts, and they're proud of the community, the beautiful community in which we're set. I'll have to say this rubbing off on me. I somewhat enjoy meeting somebody that I'm not acquainted with, talking to them saying, well, what do you do for a living? I said, well, I'm the AD at the U. And that means something to everybody. I'm proud to be part of it. Certainly the 5 people inducted tonight epitomize what I'm talking about. They are great athletes. But as important, or maybe even more important to that, is that they have degrees. They have contributed to the community once their athletic days are over. They've stayed close to the university in one form or one way or another, and they've stayed in this community for the most part. I think that says something. I want to congratulate the Crimson Club for taking the step and establishing the Hall of Fame. But certainly that is one visible way of showing that Utah pride. And I think I was surprised that we didn't have one beforehand. And certainly it's appropriate that it be done now. And these 5 inductees be the charter inductees into the Hall of Fame. You know, I also want to challenge the Crimson Club, because every one of the inductees tonight mentioned opportunity, and the opportunity that they had to come to the university. Well, we have to continue to do that, to give young men and women the opportunity to come to the university, to grow as people, to mature as athletes, and to grow academically. It's becoming harder and harder to do that. I want to challenge the Crimson Club to become the focal point in giving young men and women that opportunity, and becoming the focal point and perpetuating Utah pride. Thank you.
All too soon, that brings us to the end of what has been a very wonderful evening. And I would like to thank those who have made this evening possible. The Crimson Club Board of Directors, who comprise the banquet committee. I'd like to thank the staff of the athletic department, particularly Steve Castoli and Carolyn Johnson, who have worked, I think, day and night to make this possible. The Alumni Association has lent us some great people who have helped immeasurably, primarily Bill Cohen and Neil Hansey, and we'd like to thank them. We'd like to thank John Mooney and Bill Marcroft for coming up here from downtown and lending their great credibility to this occasion. We'd like to thank the honorees that have been inducted into the Hall of Fame. They serve as an example to all of us for what can be achieved in this kind of an institution, and we're grateful for their willingness to share their lives with us. And lastly, I'd like to thank all of you for attending and making this a wonderful evening that it's been, and I trust you've been rewarded as I have. Thank you for coming, and good night.